So in the last video we looked at patterns, which was great to elevate our website for featured products, seasonal products and things like that, and call to actions. So what we're going to look at now is, I think I mentioned earlier in one of the earlier videos, we're going to look at the footer. So at the moment we've just got a placeholder for our footer. So we're going to address that. But also in this video what I'm going to do is just to highlight some common issues that you may come across while you're designing a site or putting a site together, and how to troubleshoot those issues. So we can see that we changed something in our global styles to take the spacing out of all of our blocks, to bring them all together, to butt these colors together, which is fine. But if we look at our header now, we can see that we've got an issue with our navigation, and this is because globally we changed the block spacing. Now I'm going to address that by replicating the same problem while we build the footer, while we're adding patterns. So we need to go to our full site editing, and I want to navigate to my patterns and footer, select my footer, and the first thing I'm going to do is just to get rid of everything and just start again. If I go to my list view and just remove that whole lot, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop in another WooCommerce pattern because they're awesome. So we go to our WooCommerce patterns, and we can see all our featured products, offers, etc. And what I'm looking for is a footer pattern. So we can see here we've got a large footer dark, large footer, a simplified large footer black and white. I'm going to use this large footer dark. I'm just going to drop that in. It looks okay. We've got some navigation, we've got a place for logo, we've got some community endorsements or links to, we've got social links, and we've got some branding at the bottom and copyright. So that's fine. I want to go back to my patterns, and I'm thinking about, okay, well, my user's going to navigate my site. I want them to, rather than just get to the end of my site and see a footer, I want to maybe give them an option to browse more products. So a little bit like that Amazon thing, you know, you get to the end of the page and it says, here's what other users also bought. So I want to do something like that. I wanted to add some more sort of product listing, or a small product listing. So again, back to WooCommerce patterns because they're awesome. And I want to find some product listings. So we can see that we've got a featured product 5 item grid there. We've also got another one there, featured products fresh and tasty. So I'm going to bung one of these in, and I'm also going to bung that one in as well. Now instantly we can see that we've got a problem, and what has happened is that the first one I've placed, because of where the cursor was inserted into the blocks, it's inserted another pattern sort of inside the other pattern. But we can adjust that, and this is another tip that I'd like to use. So we can see here that we've got our footer, which is all grouped together, and that's exactly what I want. But we can see that the fresh and tasty one, which is this title here belonging to these group of products, has kind of been placed in between our shop new arrivals and product listing here. So what I like to do is to take the heading, well, take the group of blocks that I want to group. Now again, another tip, you shift select a bunch of blocks, you can group them all together. So now that set of blocks is grouped together, I can now use the up and down arrow to move them where I want as a complete unit. So I want to put that at the top, and I'm also going to take my other pattern and I'm going to group that as well, just so that I've got it all nicely set together. So again, I can now move this whole set of blocks up as one single unit. So I'm going to put that down there, and let's just take an overall look at this. So it's not quite right. You can see that we've got all of our products are kind of butting up together. Now the reason for that is because we changed the global styles for our block spacing. Now I could go into the global styles and set it back, but what that's going to do is it's going to change the settings for that globally, and it's going to affect the front page where we put all of our patterns together so that we can butt the colors and each element together. So I don't want to change the global styles. What I want to do is change the block, the block spacing just for this group, or just for this block. So we can do that quite easily by going into our columns and I want to look at the settings for the column. Now instantly it's going into my mobile view, so I'm just going to get that out of the way, and I want to come to my styles. I'm looking for block spacing. So we can see that we've got horizontal and vertical. So I want to change my horizontal, and that's going to just move everything apart, and that's exactly what I want. Perfect. Now that block setting or block spacing is only affecting this block. Okay, so I'm not changing the global style, so I know that that gotcha has been addressed. So if we look at the other product listing, we've got the same thing going on here. And again, this is inheriting our global styles, which is what we kind of want it to do, but this particular block isn't looking great. So again, we can address that by going to finding our block element. It's in this second group here, and it's going to be this product template. Now again, we haven't got the real estate here, so I'm just going to move that out of the way, move this up. So I want to go to the styles, and I want to go to the block spacing and just move that out again. So that's nice, that's where we want it to be, but it's still, again, it's not quite right. So we take a look at overall. I'm going to decide I don't want this block in here anymore, so I'm just going to remove that first one. That was literally just to illustrate the block space. So again, we're kind of there, but not quite. Now what I'm going to do is just look at the overall. So I can see it's all kind of bunched up together. So I need to space my footer away from my kind of product listing. So I'll go into this group at the top here, and I want to change my settings. And you'd think, okay, well, we need to give it some space. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to space that out. And that's fine, doing exactly what we want to do. So we've got some nice space around it. Maybe I want to take this header and I want to change the alignment, full width, and align it to the left. And again, so we need some space in here. Okay, well, let's take a look at the block setting for the margins. And I want to look at the bottom margin because the top's okay. So I just want to move that away. So that's fine, perfect. And now I've decided, okay, well, I want to give the whole block, group block, a color. So if I go to my group block and then go to the settings of that, I'll give it a background gray. And instantly we can see we've got an issue because we've got this weird spacing similar to the block spacing that we had on the front page when we got introduced to patterns. And that's not quite what we want. So we need to address that. So if we go back to our group and we take a look at our spacing, we take our margin out. So okay, great. Now the colors are butted together, but we're still not quite right. So what we need to do is to look at the padding for this group. So rather than the margin, so if we space that out and we take it to about 5, now we're kind of looking where we want to be. We've got some nice space and we're retaining the color. Now the difference between padding and margin is basically it will take the element, the margin pushes stuff away, whereas padding adds space on the inside of that element. So that's another gotcha that you might come across, changing spacing and stuff. So I'm not too, I'll just get some real space. I want to take that color off again. I decided I don't want that on, so that's fine, because I actually quite like the clinical, clean look of that design with the white background. So we're looking fairly good, but there's just one more gotcha that I want to just go through. So if we look at the overall look and feel of our site, we can see that we've got kind of where we want to be. We've got these product listing at the footer or just above the footer, that's fine. But the footer's kind of like breaking out of our width. So that is to do with an alignment. So if we go back to our group block, and we think instinctively we just need to go to our group and change our alignment to wide, but we can't. So we think, well, why is that then? And this is because the parent element, because it's come from a pattern, doesn't respect any of the settings that you might have set. So you need to go into the group or the parent element and just ensure that you've got inner blocks use content width. And by doing that, if I look at my column, we don't have our alignment. If I go back to our group and inner blocks use content width, we can now go back to our columns, and now we've got our alignment option. And by default, that will inherit what we've set to our wide width. If we look, we now now our footer's lined up with our wide width, which is what we want. And that's what it will inherit by default if we change the setting of our parent to inner blocks use content width. So a little bit of complexity there, but hopefully that describes some common issues that you might come across. There is one thing, I think, and it was the navigation. So if we save that footer and we come out of there, we can see that we haven't addressed the block gap. We need to go into our block settings for the navigation and then change the settings there. It's under styles, and change our block spacing, and that's specifically on that block. So that gives you a good indication of some of the common issues you might come across and how to troubleshoot them. And it kind of concludes the end of this video. So if this has been of any use to you, if you've liked this video, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget, if you want to get more of these kind of videos, subscribe. If you've got any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.